darks that I think can improve your drawings. So you can even go back to like older drawings that you've done and you can kind of like improve them in a certain way. And that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about today. So it's gonna be pretty quick, only gonna be on for a little bit. And yeah, let's talk about this. All right. So I'm kind of looking at two old sketches of mine, and this one does it pretty well, and this one does it pretty well too. A lot of times you're trying to figure out where to place your really dark, large shadows. And it's not always clear where you place them, but something that I like to do, and I talk about it a lot, and let's just say if we do our little, let's just say right here we have our little model of our head or something. Something like this. Let's just say we do something like this. You have our model of our head over here. Right? On this side. Sorry, didn't do that. So we have our model of our head. Let me zoom in a little bit. Bum, bum, bum. Let me zoom in right here. So if I'm thinking of like my already drawn out design, I'm thinking, okay, this design's all right, whatever. It's just like a face. It's kind of simplistic. I have some darks in here already, but I'm kind of missing some certain things, right? Because with every drawing that you do, you want to create focus and then zoom out from that focus. You can either do that with line, you can do that with something that a lot of people do, which is contrast. So what is contrast, right? So when you're drawing, contrast is the difference between the light and the dark. We're doing line art here, so the contrast is going to be obvious up front. But if we're looking at it from this standpoint, we want to throw into like more focus with large darks and kind of large white areas. So if I go anywhere, like if it's a face, even though this is a demon face, whatever it is, this could be normal face or anything like that. My darks are almost always going to be in this kind of triangle area right there, like in this area where the eyes are. There's almost always a good opportunity to put like dark shapes there. So let's go our little mannequin head, right? This is our little mannequin head. This is our whatever. If you want to create, like I said, a focus, you want to put some darks right here in those triangle areas, which I'm going to add some here. I think they're a little bit light over there. And I also like creating a triangle of dark over here under the neck. Because it's easy, right? The light source is almost always coming from above. So it's an easy opportunity to put these like triangle shapes, which almost look like arrows, right? I'm about to put that in there right now. I haven't put that here yet. See, this is why I'm going back to an old drawing and kind of going through it. Like these triangle shapes you can kind of put all over, and it creates like a quick like visual cue, like whoa, what is that? Whoa, what's going on? Like this boom, 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 right? This little arrow of dark. And it creates, again, like focus, which is what you want. So let's go into this guy. Like, how do we do it with this guy? Let's just put it darker in here, right? Maybe something like this. Let's fill it in there a little bit. I could connect it to the eyebrow right there, maybe a little bit, maybe leaving a space right there just to make sure we see the shape of that eyebrow. Over here on the other end over here, a little dark on this side, pulling in the little bit of the shadow on the lid here. There you go. So putting in some darks right there so that like you kind of like zoom in on that character, right? You want to zoom in on the face because when you're talking to somebody, it's almost always you're like focusing on their face. And then right here, I just think I do this like with everything, right? I'm always putting in this dark. I'm going to fill this whole area in right here because it's going to create a very, it's going to frame the head first off. And again, it creates this massive kind of framing for the head where it's like, I don't know, it just creates focus anyway, like really, because we're all about focus, right? And I've talked about this before. And I'm going to talk about this every time till you guys are sick of it. When you're doing stuff like this, you're doing this for the viewer, right? Obviously, you're having fun. You're drawing for yourself, for your own pure, enjoyment. But, what you're doing is you're having the viewer in mind. You're having the like, who's looking at this? You're having like their perspective in mind, and you want to make it like again easier for them to kind of look at, for them to understand it like a moment's glance. That's a really big one. Don't make stuff too mixed up. So these little dark areas, and you can add more, right? Again, it's going to be up to you, right? It's going to be up to your style, right? How many dark shapes do you want? This is just recommendation. But it's going to be up to you to do that, and you're guiding them through your drawing in a way. You're like, and you want to do it a little bit more proper. And I've heard about this thing. I think it was through Robert McKee. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Robert McKee. Robert McKee's like a writer. He writes, he trains a lot of screenwriters, but it applied to art, and I never forgot it. And I'll say it a lot too. And it'll be more like, what was it? Rules are like there's rules and there's principles. So rules say you have to do it this way, right? You don't have to do it this way at all. But this is a principle, meaning this is something that, a lot of artists have tried and it seems to work for most artists, right? And so it's just there and it works, right? This is a principle. I'm saying these dark shapes, finding them in the eyes, finding them down here, this does work, but you don't have to do it this way, right? So that's kind of what I like saying more. Like these are principles more than rules. I would say rules would be closer, maybe like anatomy, and even then, I think that could be a little bit on the principle side. But I would say those are more like rules. Like you have to, copy exact anatomy, for example. But you could always like toy with that eventually too. But yeah, finding these dark shapes is what kind of, again, brings your, like I don't know if, I wish we had like a before and after, but it doesn't work this way. But, again, in a little simple mannequin head, like, right? And then I want to create some back here because he's got this big old hair. And like looking at this drawing, it's funny because you get to look at your old drawings, right? It needs to go up. I don't like the way it's like stuck here from the, it's basically going off the page. So I'm going to have to just let it go off the page right there, right? I think initially when I drew this, I was kind of like, you know what? It's going to go, I'm going to try to keep it in the page. That's a big common mistake with artists, right? You're like, oh, you have to keep it in. So you're like squishing it in there. I don't know. It just looks worse when you squish it in. I think tomorrow, I'm going to talk about tangents, by the way. I don't know if you know anything about that. Or maybe I could talk about it now a little bit. Okay, so we have this dude right there. And again, you're see the dark, as long as I have these two, and then one down here. Again, it depends kind of the mood of it, right? For more like guys and more, I would say more like monster stuff, but like usually people, I'll do that here. But if it's like an attractive female type, I might not do these really dark areas because it's going to look too moody and it's going to look kind of grim. So it just kind of depends on the subject as well, on what's happening and what you're doing. So let's say. So that's like the first lesson, I would say today, as far as placing your darks. Let's go down over here to this robot. Let's zoom out a little bit. Right here. It's like an old sketch page of mine. All right. So if we're looking at this, I would say it's very similar too. Like how do we simplify this? And I'm already doing it. You see it, right? The dark here, darks here, right? Like tech is, I would say, where this stuff is the most useful, is putting these areas so that it becomes understandable, because tech can become a huge mess right off the bat, right? Total mess. So if I was to look at this, I'm thinking, okay. So what can I do to make this more clear to like the viewer? I put a dark line right here, and yesterday I went over lines. You can see that in my old story, but we're putting in a line right here, and I would put in a little bit more dark right here to create separation. And it's interesting too, because when you go over drawing, you kind of have moods, right? You kind of might make different decisions based on your mood. That's just something that's kind of cool. That's like a cool factor to do. And I might even do that same neck thing over here as well, underneath his neck, just to also, again, create a little bit of focus on the head itself. Maybe something like that. But these little ridges are coming off. All right. Something that artists are really into would probably be like, let's see. So right here, I want to show that form. I'm like, okay, there could be like a knob right here, right? So I put in like a thinner line so that it doesn't catch attention. You're kind of, for something like this, you're battling two things. You're battling what captures attention and what doesn't capture attention, So like that line on his cheek, I don't want that to pull my attention very much. It's just a small detail. It's a secondary, tertiary detail. But something like this, the dark area has to kind of capture attention, or area around the eye right there, I want it to capture more attention, or the framing of the head. It's just, you know, there you go. Right there. And I think there needs to be a little bit more separation when we look at this robot right there. So I'm thinking in my head like, all right, maybe I could throw a little bit of a darker line in this area. Right here. All right. And it kind of creates a little more separation, but it's weird because that line is only a little bit darker, and it does create something. It does change something. I actually don't like the design of this right here. I would make that round if I went back to it. It looks like a giant bolt in his arm, right? But it's pen. How would I change that? It's kind of hard. I could add a little bit more detail into it, like little tertiary details, meaning like these lines that don't capture too much attention, in order to, I don't know, make it a little, that one I actually want to I want to make it a little bit more confusing so it doesn't stand out as much. I just don't like the way it looks like a big bolt. And I can kind of maybe curve the shapes over here a little bit. Yeah, this is going to be almost impossible to rescue, but it's, you know, still something that, you know, it's cool. It's cool having to rescue your own drawings. You're like, okay, well, it's in pen. How do I make it look a little bit better? And you're kind of fidgeting with stuff till you like it, right? I think a big part as well of going through kind of like doing stuff for your audience is kind of asking yourself, what do you like to look at, right? Like, what do I think is an attractive shape, you know, to kind of make this make more sense. But okay, so let's recap on the stuff I was talking about before. I was talking a little bit about dark, right? So if we take our little mannequin heads, I like adding these triangles of dark for almost any head, except for maybe, it depends, right? For many heads, I like adding this dark right here in this area between, from the eye into this crevice right here, into like that far crevice as well. Sometimes I do it over here on the cheekbone, depending on the type, but I almost always do it under the neck because I think it frames the head and it brings attention to the areas that you want. Same thing goes over here with kind of the robot. I'm bringing dark areas in, like I'm pushing them, right? I'm like meaning that there's larger masses of dark in areas that I think you can focus on, like in this area, but like I said, it guides the viewer. So you have like basically, you have like an overall look, and then you have these giant areas which attract attention, like the viewer would process it that way. And then finally they would look at all the little details, right? And it makes the details like funner to look at, in my opinion. Because if you saw this without the darks or anything like that, it's just simple line art, it's going to look like, how do you say that? It's going to look like an instruction booklet out of like something, you know what I mean? It's going to look just very plain or very preliminary. And then, in my opinion, same thing goes for this. It just gives it more drama and more focus, and you know, your ability to kind of look at this stuff is just a lot better. So anyways, that's it. That was a short lesson today. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing as always. And I'll hit you guys up tomorrow. All right. See you later.